So we're going to be getting into Chapter 3, Section 1 in this video, and we're going to talk about how to factor and kind of do some of the opposite of like your distributive property that you guys have seen in the past. We did a little bit of the distributive in Chapter 11, so we're coming back to that now in Chapter 13, but we're going in the reverse direction, which is factoring. So the first way to factor something or to factor an expression is by using a common factor. So in order to do that, you want to look at the terms that you have in your expression and find the greatest common factor that they have. And that so that would be like, what can you pull out of every single term? What do they have in common? Divide each term by the common factor. Divide mentally if practical. Hopefully some of this you should just be able to pull out something, especially they tend to be smaller numbers that you're pulling out, but if you do need to use a calculator, that's fine. Rewrite the expression then as that greatest common factor term out front, so you'll see that known as GCF. So you pull that out front, and then whatever is left from the expression after you've divided, we put that in parentheses. So let's do some examples here where we write something in factored form. So if I had 3a plus 3b, what I would do is look at each term, see if there's any numbers I could pull out and if there's any letters that each one shares. So for this one, they both have a 3, so that would be my GCF. They don't share any letters, so I'm just going to factor out a 3. So I pull that out front, and then inside the parentheses would be my a plus b. For this next one, I have 3ab plus 9a plus 12b. Again, my GCF is going to be 3 because I can take that number out of all 3 of the numbers I see, but again, they don't share any letters. So I can't take out an A and I can't take out a B. So I'm only going to take out a 3, so that sits out front, and then in parentheses would be AB plus 3A plus 4B. Getting into these next ones now that we can maybe start taking out numbers and letters. This first one I have 10a squared plus 6a. So the GCF is 2a because 2 is the biggest number I could take out, and they do each have at least one a that I could pull out. So after I've pulled out 2a, I'm left with 5a plus 3. For the second one, 2x squared plus 4x to the third power, my GCF is going to be 2x squared. So if I factor out a 2x squared, I'm left with 1 plus 2x. Make sure if you guys are pulling things out and you actually pull out the entire quantity from something, so like in this case I pulled out 2x squared from that first term completely, it doesn't become 0, it becomes 1 because you have to kind of hold its place. And remember, anything divided by itself is always 1, not 0. For this next one here, we have 7y times 2y minus 5 and then plus 3 times 2y minus 5. So the greatest common factor for this one would be that 2y minus 5, that whole quantity, because it's in both of them. So I'm going to factor out that 2y minus 5, and really what this is doing is it's kind of leading us into, like, if you guys were factoring something out using some of our rules, and we'll get into that in later sections. But for this one, I can pull out that 2y minus 5 from each term, and then what I'm left with is that 7y and that 3. So you can see how I included that in its own set of parentheses. So I pulled out that quantity, 2y minus 5, and then whatever was left, you throw into another set of parentheses. For this one, negative 3x squared plus 2x minus 5, they don't share any numbers really, and they don't share any letters that you could pull out. But normally, if we're trying to factor or we want something to be in simplest form, we really like the leading term to be positive if possible. So because I have negative 3, what I'm going to do is actually pull out a negative 1 from everything, and that's going to change that that negative 3 to positive 3. It's also going to change the signs of the next two terms as well. And like I said, really the only reason why you would maybe want to do that is if we, like later on when we actually try to factor that quantity, that expression 3x squared minus 2x plus 5, we like the first term to be positive because it just makes the factoring process a lot easier for us. So if you see a problem like this one where there's really not a lot that you can take out, if the first term is negative like this one is, go ahead and pull out a negative just to make that become positive. So for your homework assignment, make sure that you go and check the homework website for the link to the Google Doc that has your homework problems on it. Make sure that you're submitting your assignment to me via email, so either make a copy of the document and submit your answers that way, or write it on a separate sheet of paper, notebook paper, print it out, write it on that. It doesn't matter to me, but just make sure that you are submitting it back to me in an email form. And then lastly, if you need any help or if you have questions about what I just went over, please make sure that you email me. I am more than happy to help you guys with anything that you might need.